Welcome to the Stuff and Things Podcast. Your home for all stuff related to your favorite things in entertainment. Now, here are your hosts.
Hello everybody and welcome to a new episode of the Stuff and Things podcast. I am Sam. Joining me today to discuss Moon Knight on this Moon Knight Monday, or Marvel Monday, whatever you want to call it, is a new person to the show, and that's Kayleigh. Kayleigh, say hello to everyone.
Hi everyone.
There you go. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are very welcome. Now, you are a big MCU fan.
I am.
More than that, is it all comic book genre stuff like DC Universe as well, or is it purely Marvel that you're a fan of?
No, we like everything in this house.
Yep.
I think Marvel is really what introduced me to the comic book world.
Yep.
Both very different, DC and Marvel, but we're not going to have that debate today.
No.
But no, I enjoy all of them. Yeah.
Well, it's a funny debate to have today, because one of the things about DC and Marvel comics, without going into real nerd level, is that they like to mirror each other. I think sometimes as a compliment, and I think sometimes as a bit of a middle finger to the other. Best example for that always for me was Deathstroke in the DC universe, was a guy called, I can't remember what it basically sounds exactly the same as Deadpool Wade Wilson anyway. They literally just like twisted the name slightly, changed the outfit a little bit, and yeah, made him a mirror. One of the things about Moon Knight that we're about to talk about is everybody in the comics always said that Moon Knight was Marvel's version of Batman.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's the a big thing that I was not concerned about, but it was in my mind when I sat down to watch the show. But actually, in that first hour, I wasn't getting huge Batman vibes from him.
No, and I think a lot of that is because of the changes they've made for TV.
Yeah.
So we'll dive into that now. But let's we have you listen to the show at least once, I know. So we have a tradition, and if I don't do the tradition, I get emails, and people generally give me a lot of stick about how I've ruined their day. We're talking about Moon Knight. It's Season 1, Episode 1 from the Marvel Cinematic Universe live-action show from Disney+, and the title of the episode is...
The Goldfish Problem.
Nicely done. So much better than Stephan. So much more professional. I'm very impressed.
He won't talk to me again if you say that.
No, it's true, actually. Yeah, you're not missing out. It's fine. So my notes are kind of scattered on this, and I think that kind of suits the show a little bit. So I want to just jump around if you don't mind. And I want to start with my two first notes I wrote down is who is Stephen, and then I've written who is Mark. So if we start with who is Stephen, the first thing I've got down here is a gift shop clerk. He calls his mother daily. I've got a question mark next to that. We'll circle back to that. He seems quite smart, possibly smarter than the job he's doing with the Egyptian history, for example. We see him literally chaining himself to his bed. He speaks to a living statue as if the living statue is his best friend, and he appears to be English. So let's run through a few of these bits. English question mark I've written down. Now, the reason why, one of the things I saw for the show as a review before I watched it, is someone described his accent as the worst English accent since Dick Van Dyke.
It wasn't that bad. It was questionable in places.
I was going to say to you, I actually thought it was really good. I'm kind of watching, and I don't know whether that's just because I'm very Bristolian, and perhaps I hear English accents and think, wow, I wish I could sound like that. But I listened to it, and I thought not only is he not doing what I call typical, So whenever I see an American or any TV or anything do an English accent, they either go Cockney or they go really upper, oh, hello, yes, oh, what, oh, jolly good. The Hugh Grant level,
Yeah.
So for me, it was nuanced. It was actually quite normal.
Yeah, I think it was good. It was good. I think there were a couple of words here and there that kind of, as soon as he said them, my husband and I looked at each other and went, it was a bruv,
bit of a cringe.
And if we're allowed to say this on a podcast, was flex. It was.
You can say what you like. We got an 18 rating. You rock on.
Those two moments for me were the ones that kind of made my eyebrow raise. But he's a great actor, and I love Oscar Isaac anyway. And it's just so we don't pass over it. He's the first Latino lead in a Marvel film. Like, that's awesome.
Is he? I didn't in an MCU project, because I mean he was a pretty big character in one of the X-Men films, which of course were Fox. In
an MCU movie.
Yeah. Okay, well that's very impressive. No, we shouldn't pass over that. But accent wise, I thought was good. But the character does appear to be English. So Stephan, now that immediately is a divergence from the comics. Now I will say this. This is not a comic I know. So when I went into the show, I did go in with a little bit of kind of a clean slate, and I'd read a few preview pieces, like the comparison with Batman, for example, and stuff. So I did go into it a little bit not sure what to expect. And I did read that they made some changes, and one of the key changes they made was to take the show from New York to London. The reason why they did that apparently is Kevin Feige looked at it and went, "We have got a lot of super people in New York." Now, I know that why that happened with Marvel Comics, because obviously Stan Lee loved New York and he just wrote places and people that he knew. He kind of created all of these characters. But when you look at it from a kind of universe building point of view, I think you've got the Defenders series that used to be on Netflix and now on Disney Plus. Those characters are back in the MCU under ownership, under Kevin's control. New York is stocked. There is a lot of people there. So they've moved it to London, and by doing that, I think the Batman comparison can go, because the character that I've seen in Stephan here, in the comics, he's a millionaire, very suave, sophisticated kind of business guy. That's not the Stephan we're getting in this show. Not the guy we've been introduced to so far, anyway.
No, and I think my opinion of him in the first kind of 10 minutes, he's a bit uncool, he's a little bit lame, lovely guy, tries really hard, wants to, he's lovable, he's a lovable character. I really kind of felt him in that first kind of 10-15 minutes. But yeah, I don't see that we're going to get a huge kind of reveal as he's a secret millionaire, and this is another facet of his one of his identities. No. I think there might be more that come in rather than just the two we're used to.
Well, I did wonder that. I did wonder just how, because obviously he's suffering with associative disorder. Go on, you know this. You knew the term. You said this yesterday. Come on, dazzle me again.
Dissociative identity disorder, or DID.
I'm so glad you're here for that. I would have just said he got multiple personalities. That is where I would have put it.
Yeah, it's a level beyond that, actually.
Oh, isn't it just? What I find interesting about it is, I don't know enough about that, and I certainly don't know enough about it within the MCU and how they're going to depict it, to know if we're going to see distinct personalities and it's 2 people, 3, 4, 5, is it a case of it could evolve by more and more? At the moment, it seems very much night and day, Stephan and Mark. It appears anyway.
Yeah, and I hope that they don't go too far with it. We've only got 6 episodes initially. I think it will lose something if we go, a new person every episode, because you need to get that emotion from them, and you need to, as an audience, make that connection. And I don't think you could do that with
I agree
6
with
people over 6 episodes. So hopefully we get the 2, maybe a third. Jake Lockley is one that I've seen pop up a few times in things that I've read and whispers that I've heard.
Yeah.
But 2 is great. I think there's enough there to get a good story.
Definitely, definitely. And one of the things as well is you could always, I don't know what their plan is, because with this they play their cards quite close to their chest in terms of they're introducing these characters, a lot of them in these series. Do they then intend to, the characters exist, we might see them in films? Do we get a season 2? We don't know. And the only show that we were given as like, this is definitely one and done, was WandaVision. The other shows have all been kind of left open. We know that Loki's got a season 2, for example. With this one, again, it doesn't say limited run on it, so they could be planning to keep going. I'm guessing it depends on how well it's received. They could be planning some sort of migration. Like, so for example, Hawkeye isn't getting a season 2, but there is Echo. So that show is continuing, but just focusing on a different character that was introduced in that show. Whether that would be the same in this, I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait to see.
I mean, I guess it's always a possibility, and it could be, a really good setup series for, like with Echo, subsequent story. Yeah. I don't know whether it's got a place in the current movie run. I think there's already so much going on, and the Celestials, I think, is going to be huge, and I think it's going to be brilliant. Which is a controversial opinion in itself.
Yeah. Isn't it just?
I'm really excited about that, but moving on. Yeah. I don't know where Moon Knight would sit within that kind of plan forward.
I think if you were looking at Moon Knight, and again, this is with only 1 episode in, if I was looking at Moon Knight right now and I was looking at the current movies, I'd actually be looking more at Blade. Because we are about to go into a more supernatural area of the MCU. This is dealing with Egyptian mythology, the gods, and there's a very supernatural element to this. You look at Blade with vampires and that kind of background, and you look at the fact that at the end of the Eternals movie, you see Kit Harington's character, the Black Knight, I think is his character name. It's actually Blade's voice that speaks to him. So there's instantly the Black Knight, Blade, there's clearly, and they're in London, which is where this has now been set. So if there's going to be some sort of crossover, some sort of link, I think it could be there. But
Possibly. I don't think that, Marvel, Moon Knight in the whole, the grand scheme of things is relatively unknown unless you're unless you're a proper Marvel comic book nerd. Moon Knight is probably what is this? And it's cost them a lot of money. They've invested a lot. They've got some really big names. So actually maybe it is setting us up for something else, and this is just the starting point. But you just don't know at the minute where any of these things could go.
No idea, because they've created this large connected universe, the MCU, which often, to me, is a wonderful thing for all the phases so far. But I did wonder, as we were going into this next phase, whether they'd have been better to go, okay, we've told the MCU, we've done that, now we're just going to tell stories for these characters, because it's like every time you layer something else in, it's like, oh wow, the Eternals, they dealt with it in the film, like, well, where were you when Thanos was here? Literally, they had to ask the question, because every fan watching the film was going, alright, you lot are so powerful, what were you doing, sat with your thumb up your backside the whole time Thanos was about, come on. So they had to deal with that, and it feels like every new character that's brought in, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with the, like, well, where were you?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I like the idea that they're going to try and do it. I don't know. But the thing is every time I look at something from Marvel, the MCU, and I think, oh, maybe they've gone too far with this. Maybe I'm going to find this weird. Maybe that's going to be, the jump in the shark moment, so to speak. And then I get really into it. So I don't know. One of the things I did, like I said in my notes, is he calls his mother Daily. Now I put a question mark on that, and the reason why I put a question mark is a question mark. There you go. That worked out well. who in the hell is he calling? Because if he does have a mother, I would assume, but is it his mother? Is it Mark's mother? He doesn't appear to be speaking to anyone. He just appears to be leaving voicemails.
Yeah, there's no two-way. That was something that
No.
I that kind of flagged to me. I don't feel like there's a two-way conversation going on. So
No.
I don't know whether something's happened to his mum, part of the weird backstory that we're going to see. Or whether
he references as well, like, oh, sorry, I missed you. So it's like he's waking up to a missed call from her or something, and then he's returning the call and it's a voice message. But there's something I noticed, and this could be really, come on, Sam, you're overthinking this. But so you tell me. He's leaving a message on the phone, and he's putting a postcard on the fish tank. And he says, oh, I got your postcard. I've put it up for Goldie. I think that was the name of his fish. Really original, dude. One thing, you call it Nemo. What are you doing? Anyway. So he puts the postcard, and he says that when he arrives at work later on, I swear he walks past a stand with postcards on it with the same postcard. I'm wondering if he's sending it to himself. I'm wondering if Mark is doing this, or
it's a way of communicating.
Well, communicating, or kind of, I don't know, keeping him in his little bubble. Does that make sense? Like, don't allow him to be alert to what's actually going on. It just, I don't know. There's very little done in Marvel, just as throwaway. We talk about it a lot when it's me and Stephan. Everything feels like it's got a purpose, so it's very easy to overanalyze things. But for me, I did spot that, and I did wonder if, well, hang on a minute, he's clearly not talking to anyone. If he does have this DID, thank you very much for that, then if his biological mother would even know him as Stephen? Was he born Stephen? Was he born Mark?
Well, that was something, that actually is a question not a question, but a feeling. I feel that Mark is the dominant personality. And that's a big thing within DID. You've always got one that's the dominant character, person. And I think Stephen is the sub, one of the sub personalities. Yeah. And maybe this thing with the phone and the losing the days and things is kind of leading back to that potentially.
Yeah, well, if that is the case, and which I think it could be, based on, we have this voice we get. The voice that come in is, I'm trying to look up the name now. Khonshu. The character, Khonshu is this kind of Egyptian that he's, possessing's the wrong word, I think, but is in Mark, in essence. And we hear this voice, and the voice refers to Stephen as a parasite, as a worm. So I think you're right. I think Mark is the dominant, and Stephen is this kind of fragmented other personality. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the parasite, would he? He'd be the main one.
Yeah, definitely. So
he also refers to him as an idiot, which made me laugh.
Oh, but do you know what? When he did that, I kind of thought, oh, don't be mean. He's so cute. Yeah. He's so, innocent and naive.
I think that speaks a lot to Oscar Isaac, doesn't it? That he can convey to us in the audience in about 10 minutes that we all feel an attachment to this guy straight away. Yeah. Like, don't hurt him. He's literally done nothing. Him waking up face down with his jaw dislocated was phenomenal as well. That was just like, oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and the opening credit with the glass on his feet.
Yeah. I was gonna come back to Arthur, because I think Arthur deserves a section all to himself, because that guy is intense. By the way, it's Ethan Hawke, isn't it?
It is Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, a friend of mine refers to Ethan Hawke as a Pangland Kevin Bacon. And I don't know where to go with that. But when I saw him come on screen, I was like, oh, I see it now.
Yeah,
okay, I kind of see it.
I say it the other way around.
I think you're right. But but Kevin Bacon's just been in everything, so probably been around longer.
Yeah.
But focusing on Stephen, then, so like I said, we talked about that with the mother, which is strange. He does seem to be quite a smart guy. He obviously reads a lot. One of the things you see in his place when he's trying to stay awake is he's reading Egyptology, constantly reading these books. He's chaining himself to the bed. Now I've written why question mark. Now we as the audience know about the DID because it's been told to us before the show aired. He clearly thinks he's sleepwalking.
He does. Yes. If you notice the tape on the door, so when he wakes up, you can see if he's left overnight.
Yeah.
So he's aware that something is going on. That, in his subconscious somewhere, he knows that something is happening. So at the end, when, they come face to face, he's not overly shocked. Obviously he's shocked, but it's almost like a realization.
Oh, this is what it is. Yeah.
This makes sense now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because one of the things I was going to put to you is I think this show just demonstrates how far men will go before going to a doctor.
Absolutely.
This guy has literally chained himself to his bed, will spend hours trying to stay awake, will pour sand around the bed, put tape on the door, go through all of that before thinking, do you know what, this is quite bad, I should probably go see a doctor.
Yeah, and I think the 6 episodes, it's a really good opportunity for the show to kind of dig deeper into that and, help. We see him learn to navigate the DID, and it's a really good platform, and hopefully, it will raise awareness and open different conversations in a similar way, that people blew up after the Joker, but that was more of a negative thing. This could be a positive. And I think he will come to terms with it. He'll learn about it, and he will, become a hero because of this disorder, rather than it being he's a hero despite of this, So I
hope so. I hope so. I mean, I genuinely, I'm not sure where they're going to go. I'm kind of episode 1. I spent most of it baffled but interested. So when we get to know more, I hope, like you said then, I hope he investigates it and getting the story from Stephen's point of view is interesting, because we're not seeing it unravel where we're seeing each personality emerge. We are only seeing from the point of view of Stephen. So the blackout moments and him coming back, it's meant to confuse us, but it's demonstrating what it is for him and how baffled he is by everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I think when you flick back from out of those blackouts and you see the bloodied hands and the destruction that's around him, I think that's really clever. I really like that, because you've got Stephen, who's, quite comedic. There's a few kind of
mild-mannered,
moments in there that make it quite light, but in those
Mark's clearly highly trained and vicious.
Absolutely, that's the really dark, bloody stuff that's really serious, and I think that speaks a lot to how much conflict they're going to have as two characters. So Stephen and Mark, one very mild-mannered, one lovely, and one this vicious vigilante. And that's really interesting.
Another really good example is Stephen's vegan, whereas Mark wants to go out for steak.
For steak, yes. Oh, the date scene. Oh my goodness.
How did you cope with that? Were you okay?
So emotional.
The
phone call to his mum at the end, just
whilst throwing the flowers away.
Yeah. Oh,
so that again kind of, was there an interaction with his mother at any point? Because he's leaving a message again, but he's doing it in a kind of like, oh yeah, she loved the flowers, like his mother asked.
Yeah.
So again, it's strange. I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Whether Mark's got some lady on staff who's ringing him, leaving him messages, I don't know.
I don't know. It's almost like it could be, memories of conversations that Mark has had with a mother, or another person, like the core kind of personality, the dominant person. That could be what he's remembering. So he thinks he's had this conversation, but actually it was a conversation one of the other Stephens has had, so it's really clever. It's going to be fun to see how that plays out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they set it up so well, because there's so many little bits. But the bit where he's lost the days, because I find that fascinating, because we have the kind of action scenes, etc. that happened, and then he wakes up back in bed, still chained to it, still, there's no footprints in the sand, there's still the tape on the door. Obviously, we know again that when this other personality emerges, they're not sleepwalking. They're perfectly capable of unchaining themselves, jumping over the sand or putting the sand back, taking the strip off the door and then putting it back. So we obviously know that. He doesn't at this point. But the days lot, I mean, the replacement fish, which is obviously, the goldfish problem, the title of the episode. When he goes into that store and he's kind of ranting about it, I mean, we as the audience again are looking at it going, oh, we know what's happened. This is a parent has replaced the fish for a child moment here. And the woman's like saying, look, you were in here yesterday asking for a fish with only one fin. I told you then, go away. And he's like, what? I wasn't here yesterday. So when Mark emerges, he is living a life and is moving around London but is actively doing things so Stephen's unaware of him. If Mark's the dominant, why is he doing that? Did you see my point where I'm going?
Yeah. And I think you're on the right track with that. I wonder whether it's getting to a point now where, because he's becoming more aware, he's leaving sort of little breadcrumbs, maybe, how did he find that, with the phone?
Yeah.
Why
true.
do you sound different when Layla was on the phone? Things like that.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because he knows he needs to start bringing him around and making him aware, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, we know that Mark is a personality. We know that Mark's a mercenary. And he's clearly a fairly famous one, because Arthur Harrow, who we're kind of looking at as the big antagonist in the series, looks at him and goes, I know you. You're a mercenary. Stephen's like, no, I'm not. I work in a gift shop.
Yeah.
Which was brilliant. But clearly Mark is someone of note in that world. Is perhaps someone of that nature, they'll assume alter egos and they'll assume identities to kind of blend in and to vanish. Is he using his DID as a superpower to do just that? If even he doesn't know who he is, how could anyone else ever work it out?
I think you're right. And I think, again, that's a really big opportunity and it's a really good way of telling the story. And Mark, when we talk about the voice, like the Khonshu, he's a god. Khonshu is a god of the moon, unable to enter Earth. There's some kind of link. I was looking at it the other day, in terms of a similar realm to the Asgardian realm.
Yeah.
But he can't come to Earth, so he picks champions. And I wonder if Mark is seen as a champion, as Moon Knight for him. Yeah. Or, I don't know enough, and this is why I get really excited about it, because Moon Knight isn't something that I know.
No, me neither.
So, I can ask all these weird questions and people are probably going, oh, this is an obvious answer to this, but I don't know, and I'm really excited about it. But there's no answer at the moment. We just don't know.
No, we don't. And one of the things I did notice with the Khonshu thing, you definitely get Venom vibes.
Yes.
Where you've got this voice, this kind of booming voice, and with Stephen, I mean, I'm looking forward to possibly getting to see Mark's interaction with Khonshu a little bit, perhaps. But with Stephen, I mean, he's just calling him a worm, calling him a parasite. The idiot's in charge again. Oh no, not you! You're going to get us killed.
So Khonshu probably knows that there are multiple personalities.
Yeah, must do. Yeah.
And he wants, he only wants to deal with Mark. When Stephen turns up, he's like, oh, for God's sake, here we go.
Why are you here? Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's.
It's fun though. It's definitely fun. I mean, because one of the things about the MCU, which I think some people go, oh, why did they have to? It's like the main premise for everything they do is they want people to enjoy it and have fun watching it. And yeah, you can have absolute action-packed episodes and sort of darker, grittier storylines and stuff, but ultimately you do need stuff that's going to make you smile and laugh.
Yeah.
And the interaction with Khonshu was great. It really was. It was really funny. So again, that's kind of Stephen. I think we've covered most. The living statue thing, that's the last thing I want to kind of cover with Stephen. Do you think, because there's two parts to me with this, and either way I'm happy with. Either that guy is so lonely, he sits next to a living statue and talks to him as if he's his mate because he knows the living statue can't tell him to go away. That's both horribly sad but beautiful.
Mm.
Or that it genuinely is his friend who's working, and Stephen goes and sits with him to keep him company. You know, he has met this guy. Now, in the comics, the character that is the living statue does exist in the comics, but again, we are so different. He's basically a homeless man in New York that Stephen befriends. So here we have the living statue in London, who Stephen appears to be friends with. So again, I don't know which way they're going to go. What about you? Do you see which way that could go, or is there a different way you think? My
instinct at the time told me that it was the former of what you said. I think it's, you know, he's really lonely. It's somebody that he sees, something that he recognizes, something that's familiar to him.
Yeah.
So he goes and he, you know, it's part of a ritual for him. You know, he goes home, he sees this guy, the statue, and I think it's that for me, which again screams that, you know, they want you to connect with Stephen.
Yeah, definitely.
And they want you to kind of like him, and it really enforces that, you know, he's a really lovable character who, you know, you just want to take care of and give him a hug.
You want to give him a big hug, yeah. That's
and then on the
literally
flip side, you've got a character that they want you to kind of not despise, but to, you know, black and white, night and day. You know, that's what they want. To
fear a little bit, to kind of be like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So moving on to who is Mark. I mean, what I've got written down here is mercenary/thief ? Appears to be American. I think Oscar Isaac, just so we're talking normally. And obviously there's a link with Khonshu, which at some point hopefully we'll get a little bit of backstory to. I talked a little bit about the scenes where we see Stephen, and then Stephen sort of blacks out and then comes back, and, you know, all of this stuff's happened. Do you think it would be fun to, even if it's just a little throwaway bit in an episode, where you actually see those moments from Mark's point of view? Or do you think it's better just to leave that completely as it is?
I'm in two minds. I think for me personally, I would really like to see that, because I think it would reinforce that message of, you know, two very distinct personalities.
Yeah.
Because we know as an audience that actually this guy is, you know, awful and does awful things for questionable reasons. Sometimes. Well,
we don't know what they are right now.
We don't know yet. You know, so part of me really wants to see that. The other part of me thinks, you know, this is a Disney Plus show. How much can they show? Are they going to go down the route of? Well,
it's interesting you say that, because of course Disney Plus now is moving. You know, the MCU definitely has, you know, they've introduced these shows that were originally on Netflix. They are very adult. I mean, they are rated 15 or 18 in the UK.
Yeah.
They are very adult Marvel shows. The violence in them, I mean, there's sex and stuff in those shows, which is probably what gives them the higher rating. But even if you took that out, the violence in them is a level up, if that makes sense. It is definitely grittier. And when I saw the end scene of this, of Moon Knight literally just pounding on that creature on the floor, I was like, oh wow, that's very similar. That is kind of, that had a very similar tone to me. So I do wonder if this show is going to set a bit of a tone, because there is an interview with Kevin Feige from about 2-3 months ago where he says they had an original edit that they knew Disney would say no. They were like, we know they're going to say no, but when they tone us down a bit, we'll be happy.
Yeah.
And they loved it, and it's still there.
And I think that's a really conscious decision by the team at Marvel. If you think back to, you know, at the very beginning when Iron Man was released, when Hulk was released, you know, the audience then, that's us now, you know, and we were all a lot younger then. As a general audience, a millennial audience, this is their key kind of demographic really for this kind of thing. So it needs to be more mature, because otherwise people coming into it at our age at this point will be, oh, this is really juvenile. But actually, really, it speaks to a lot of people in terms of, you know, it's what they want to see now. You know, people are so desensitized to things like that they
you're
can't
right.
keep it, you know, too comic booky, you know, too.
Yeah, you can't be blammo, wham, and all that kind of stuff. It needs to be based in reality, which is something they've always done with the MCU. But just, you know, you depict violence, Tony Stark, you know, blasting someone, you just see them fly off. You didn't see blood splatter everywhere and stuff. And whereas in this, you know, you're seeing Mark or Stephen covered in blood. You know, there's the scene where he's holding that scarab beetle, and it looks like, you know, that's gross. That was grotesque. He looks like he's literally driven that through someone's skull. You know, it is nasty. But and then again, the end scene,
you don't see the actual impact. That's what it makes you think. And you can put your, you know, as me, I go straight to the, you know, to the level 100, you know, that's something really nasty happened. But, you know, if you're not as, you know, twisted as me, you might just think, oh, you know, he's hurt himself.
Oh no, look at him. No. He's got a owie. Yeah. No, I think most people are pretty dark and twisted. You're fine. But so like you, I'm a little bit on two minds on this, because there's part of me, like, if episode 2 was episode 1, but completely from Mark's point of view, I don't think I'd be unhappy. At the same time, I'd love the story to progress, but I'd almost love that. I think there's a big part of me that would just find seeing Mark hit on that girl and fix up the date. Yeah. Seeing Mark go on this mission. Perhaps he's communicating with Khonshu, who says, you have to go and do this. He's like, but I've got a date, you know? And just seeing that, and him waking up, setting himself free of that, shaking his head, finding the goldfish dead and thinking, oh, you know, I've got to deal with that. Hiding the phone, you know, seeing the missed calls from this lady and going, nah, you're all right. You know, whatever goes on with him to try and go for all these things, and then his confusion and his, you know, oh no, Stephen's emerging at the wrong time. You know, could it be a case of the reason why Stephen's emerging is because rather than Mark being able to get stuff done in a night, you know, 5-6 hours, he's been taken away for a couple of days, you know?
I think I would like to see that, from that perspective. Yeah. But like you say, I don't know if we've got time. We've only got 6 episodes.
Exactly.
I think a whole episode to do that would maybe take something away from the rest of the story, and you kind of almost get into a bit of there's another show that does something a bit similar. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but that was really good. But that was, you know, 3 seasons long.
Yeah, you thinking of Legion? No, possibly not. It was a Fox show based on the X-Men universe, and a character called Legion. And I've seen a lot of people do comparisons with this because of the sort of mutation for the character. But I find that show too much. He had multiple personalities all the time, and I find it really confusing.
Yeah, no, I think what we will probably see is the journey for Mark to become this dominant character, and Stephen will almost be, you know, the person on his shoulder trying to rein him in and make, you know, his
that could be interesting.
He becomes, you know, this well-rounded, you know,
individial because
hero
of the different
that everybody can relate to, you know. So that's probably where I can see them going with it more.
Well, no, that'd be interesting. One of the things, obviously, Stephen discovers, like the hidden phone and things like that. On the hidden phone, we see loads of missed calls from someone called Layla, and then there's one from someone called Duchamp. Again, picked up on it. I know nothing about either of them. But the MCU, they don't give us things for nothing. Duchamp was a character in the comics. I looked that up. But I didn't read any more because I'm thinking, no, I just want to watch the show and see what happens.
Yeah, I had the same. I came into this thinking, you know, I don't know anything. It's a series that I can enjoy in comparison to WandaVision, where I analysed every second.
Oh yeah.
Show with you most times.
Yeah, most of the time, definitely. Yeah.
This I could
Mephisto's
enjoy,
coming. Yeah.
you know. So I spotted Layla. I didn't spot the other one. I think that, you know, there is limited Easter eggs in this whole series,
Yeah.
because I think it is quite standalone at this point. But we don't know, you know, there could be, in 2 years' time, we could be talking about this going, hey, remember that first episode of Moon Knight when we said there were Easter eggs?
I did see last night that someone's gone back to Captain America Winter Soldier, okay? And there's a scene where the SHIELD / Hydra agent is talking about the weapon system's going to take out everyone they perceive as a threat. And in that he says, Stephen Strange, Bruce Banner, and he says all these names. Apparently he says in that a direct reference to Moon Knight as one of the personalities from the comics, and people have only just picked it up.
Wow. I'm going to have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, I know.
Any excuse.
Yeah, any excuse to watch that again. Apparently, one of the famous personalities in Moon Knight he references, he says something like a thief in Cairo or something like that.
Oh.
The something in Cairo, and everyone's gone, wait a minute, hang on, does that? And then people have looked it up and realised, actually, yeah, that does relate to Moon Knight.
Interesting.
Kevin Feige really did plan ahead. That's the only thing I'm going to say about this. He really had a map ahead, like 10 years, and just went, yeah, throw that in as a reference. And if I get round to it, I'll make it. If I don't, it's just a throwaway line. No one will know.
Yeah. Well, they will know. We know. Well, somebody out there will know. And in my mind,
spotted it.
It's 20 years ahead, you know, in my brain.
Oh, isn't it just? No, so the big character, like you alluded to this earlier on, and literally the opening scene to the show is this character, Arthur Harrow, having a nice glass of water. Then he smashes the glass, pours the glass into his sandals, puts his feet into the sandals, and you can hear the crunching, and then goes for a walk.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 things to this. One, ow. I have had a tiny, tiny shard of glass in my foot before, and it is pain. And it took me ages to get that out. So the thought of just walking around on glass, no. Why? Hello, you're crazy. I decided, because I thought to myself, that can't just be a bizarre ritual thing. There must be, apparently, and again, I stand by the madness of this, walking on glass is something that some people believe helps them meditate. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't. However,
no.
Now you've said it, I can see it, I guess, because if you can get yourself into such a state of meditation where you cannot even feel shards of glass in the bottom of your feet. Then you know you've reached true enlightenment, and you know you are at one with yourself. you
are on another level, that's for sure. But the guy, like I said, just pours it into his shoes, and goes for a walk. Yeah, that was very weird. And the guy, to me, this is possibly oversimplification. He's behaving like a cult leader. Yeah. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
But he appears to be, and here's another aspect of this show which is possibly different. He appears to have some form of power, because he has this tattoo on his arm of the weighing scales, which is very big in Egyptian, Egyptology. This is my very basic understanding. It's the god Anubis would weigh your heart before you pass into the underworld. If it was as light as a feather, you're a good person. If it wasn't, you got devoured. And you were devoured by Amit, by the way, just so you know. Yeah, there you go. And he has this scale in his hand. He holds this guy's hands. The scales come up, and he's like, "You're a great person." Gives him a hug. Then a lovely looking old lady steps up, who's led a really good life, she says. I've got no reason to disbelieve her. I don't think she's someone who, kicks cats on the sly. She seemed lovely. And the scales say no, and he holds on to her hands and literally drains the life from her, and she dies. So this guy does have some power, whether he is like possessed, perhaps he is acting as the human avatar. I think that gets mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that was, because the thing I wanted to mention is we are seeing all of this from the point of view of Stephan, who does have DID. Is he a reliable narrator? Is he seeing this, and are we seeing the truth of what's happened? Did this lady just faint? I don't know. Did the tattoo really move, or is he just seeing that? I mean, what do you think they're going to go that deep, or do you think we can rely on what we are seeing?
I don't know. I would like to think that we can rely on what we've actually seen for that, because just going back to the idea behind the scales and the good outweighing the bad.
Yeah.
When I looked into it, actually it's more than that.
Okay.
There's more to it. So it's not just I've made somebody dinner today, or I kicked my cat. It's how your actions reverberate across the universe. So if I do this, what's the butterfly effect of that? And that is why that old lady may have had some wonderful intentions, but without thinking about the consequences of her immediate actions, what happened beyond that. And it goes quite, the levels that I went down, I went down a right old rabbit hole when I was looking at it, because it was really interesting. And I think that will play a part in the rest of the story, this good versus bad. And I think that will link back to Mark and Stephan, potentially. Stephan might be good, Mark might be bad, but actually how do their actions, what other reactions does
balance
that
out?
create?
Because it's quite an interesting point of view you say that, because of course you look at a situation where Mark killing someone is bad. Mark kills someone. But if he kills someone who was about to commit genocide, does that balance? Does that,
that's referenced, isn't it? Harrow brings it up.
Talks about Hitler and things.
Yeah, and there was a comment that one of the lines, or one of the scenarios he mentioned has actually caused a big uproar. In
the Armenian genocide,
but that aside, I think, I think that I'm going to personally rely on that for now.
No, I agree. I did, like I said, it's very easy to overanalyze sometimes, especially with Marvel stuff. And I'm glad I got you here to keep me in check, because I think I could easily go down the rabbit hole with that. I do think this is a really good time for me just to bring in, actually. So yesterday I was browsing TikTok like a teenage girl would, but it was me. My daughter's 13 and introduced me to TikTok, and now I'm addicted to the damn thing. And I found a video from a lady who's an Egyptologist, and she was explaining the actual mythology behind the characters. With her permission, I might add. I've actually got her explanation here of who Ammit actually was. This is from a lady, her account on Instagram, you can find her on TikTok. It's bite-sized ancient history. On Instagram, it's bite-sized _ancient_history. Find on TikTok, but to be honest with you, if you just do a search for that, you'll find her. I went through a load of her videos yesterday. They're actually really great on all sorts, but she does say she's going to be every Moon Knight episode doing some videos explaining the actual mythology, which I thought would be quite interesting. So here it is. This is her explaining who Ammit is.
I'm a Cambridge Egyptologist. Let's talk about the real Egyptology behind the first episode of Moon Knight. Let's talk about the god Ammit. It's become pretty clear from the first episode, spoiler warnings, that this is going to be the main antagonist of the series, along with her followers. And Ammit was a real Egyptian god. As you may have noticed from the episode, her depiction looks a little bit peculiar compared to our regular Egyptian gods. And this is because she is part lion, hippo, and crocodile. She is pretty terrifying. And this is because, as the show correctly depicts, she is one of the main gods in the underworld and is linked to this weighing scales that we keep seeing throughout the episode. In ancient Egyptian mythology, once you died, you had to face a series of challenges to pass successfully to the underworld, and one of them was the weighing of the heart, and this determined whether you had lived a true and virtuous life. If you failed this weighing, you were devoured by Amit, as we kind of see in the episode.
Well, I thought that was interesting. What about you?
Yeah, that was really interesting. I'm going to have to look her up, give her a little follow.
I
Maybe
do
on
need
TikTok. I'm too old for
No,
TikTok.
no. Yeah, don't. I turn 40 next year, and I'm on TikTok far too much. We have a TikTok account for the podcast, and we've been trying to do content for it on a regular basis, and it's done quite well, and we've actually increased our listenership because of it. So if you've joined us because of TikTok, hello and thank you. But it is, I don't know how, I kind of laughed a lot at people putting themselves down as content creators as a kind of, this is what I do. It's actually quite hard work. You try and keep up with stuff like that. It's nuts.
Wow.
Like, I see people put out like 5 or 6 videos explaining different aspects of Moon Knight episode 1, and I'm like, I've only just watched it. What have you done with your day?
It's dedication, and I'm just going to put this out there. When you hit a certain number of TikTok followers, we all want to see you do a TikTok dance, Sam.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, okay. If we get to 5,000, I will find out whatever the trending dance is, and I will do it. Assuming I can just stand in one spot and move around a little bit like Axl Rose. That's my dancing sweet spot. But yeah, so with that explanation and Arthur, his actions in this episode, I mean, they appear to be following the mythology, which is great. Arthur tracks down Stephan. There seems to be this thing about this scarab beetle. We don't know what's happened to it. We know that Mark stole it, or intercepted it, and I'm guessing he did that at the behest of Khonshu. And I do just want to mention this one scene a second because it's very funny. Stephen has come to in this town. He's witnessed Harrow doing his thing, this lady dying. This guard tells him, someone's stolen it. Is he here? Yeah, we think so. He says something so everyone kneels, and then Stephen's just there, oh, bollocks.
Bollocks. Yeah.
and then kneels. That was brilliant. I mean, because that, again, just comedy, classic. It's just great. And then he does this as an actor, incredible physical feat of detaching his body, if you like, from his facial expressions. Because he's trying to hand the thing over, but obviously, be it Mark or be it Khonshu, is preventing him from actually giving it up.
It was.
I mean, I thought that scene was brilliant.
Yeah, it was. It was really good. And again, it just kind of provided some of those lighter moments, I guess.
Yeah.
Within, because you kind of, you have a sense of what's to come at this point, this is bad. Something bad's going to happen. But actually it was very comical. And again, that slapstick kind of feel to it with, pulling his arm back and turning his body. And I mean, good.
He does the big dramatic steps trying to get away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, that leads to the kind of series of him blacking out and then coming back around after some severe violence have taken place. So there's the one moment where he's surrounded by a group and he literally, like we said, he comes back bloodied, they're all on the floor. He steals a cupcake van. One of the things in this episode I will say, which I enjoyed as well, is the use of music. There's a lot of songs in there, and I do think if you were to analyse it, and I haven't, but I do think if you were to analyse it, there's a few less than subtle nods and kind of fun little things in the music. This one that happens here with the cupcake band being chased, I think it's just very straightforward, having some fun. Playing Wham! Wake Me Up.
Brilliant. Genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
just absolutely daft, but funny and great.
But
and he
also
keeps...
falls back to feeling like you're asleep because of switching between the personalities. That's really clever.
Yeah, it was great. I just like, it was perfect. And because he stole this cupcake van and, the CD that was on there came on or whatever, it just worked perfectly. Everything fitted. we see sort of one of the soldiers, the mercenaries, jump on the van. He's throwing cupcakes at him, poor Stephen. Then he blacks out and he's got the gun in his hand. The guy's shot in the head. The van that was about to ram him like explodes behind him.
Yeah.
The flicking in between during this whole scene and then him waking up in the bed, I thought that whole sequence was brilliant. Just had me watching it thinking, what is going on? And then Stephen's point of view of, oh wow, what a dream.
Yeah.
No, mate, no. I do want to point this out though, and I do think it's fair. Me and Stephen as a character of a similar age, there is no way that guy goes off doing mercenary fighting and stuff, and Stephen's waking up feeling fine. I wake up just after rolling the wrong way slightly with a crick in my neck. Dude, no.
I was gonna say, you know, how does he wake up with, you know, limited injuries and he's literally just pulled his arm out of the socket to turn it the wrong way to try and get away from giving him this beetle, and he wakes up and he's all everything's hunky dory. Yeah,
well, it does go to show that mind over matter does play a massive part in a lot of these things.
100%.
It would be funny to explore, just like, is this why I wake up with bruises all the time? You know, just like it could be fun, could be some fun in that. So yeah, I mean, we want to, like I said, I want to go back to the scene where Harrow tracks him down, and Harrow holds his hands to do the scales thing. Now, he says something to him, and again, you're going to have to rein me in here, okay? He says, there's chaos in you.
Oh, I nearly jumped out of my chair.
Yeah. So, I'm not the only one then that went Wanda in that moment.
Yeah, no, it was a kind of moment.
Yeah. Yeah, so the chaos in you, of course, rightly is likely just Khonshu.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's multiple personalities, so that basically means the scales can't get a read. The scales are like, wait, what? This is crazy. So that could just be, but I don't know. The minute he said chaos, it felt very deliberate. There's chaos in you. That felt, you know, Wanda. And again, it's the kind of mystic side of things, which Wanda fits in quite nicely, by the way. Also, probably a really good time to point out that she's just signed a new contract with Marvel Studios for 6 new projects.
I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think chaos is always going to be a word over the next 2 years that kind of makes everybody go, ooh, you know, and it makes ears prick up. However, I like you, I don't think that was unintentional at all.
No.
But I think the chaos that we talk about with Mark or with Stephen is because the core kind of body of the character, so the main, at the moment we think it might be Mark, he is the one that has the chaos. But you know, in terms of mystical chaos, Stephen is very much, he is chaotic in his being. You know, the way that he presents himself, the way that he acts, the way he thinks, because he's in a state of like, what the is going on?
Going on, yeah.
You know? So there's two references there, I think. But anyone who knows Marvel and is, you know, in the rabbit hole like we are, will see that as a bigger meaning.
Okay, well, be interesting to see how that plays out. One of the things, as we go through this now, sort of to wrap things up, one of the things that obviously happens is this character, Arthur Harrow, seems to have followers everywhere, including at this museum. He also unleashes a creature, so he has these powers, he has these abilities to do these things, and this creature is hunting Stephen. He says to him over the loudspeaker in the museum, give up the scarab beetle, or this thing's going to rip you apart. He manages to lock himself or get into probably the nicest bathroom I've ever seen ever.
A public bathroom? Nicest I've ever seen.
Yeah, that place was, there's going to be a lot of people around the world looking at that going, wow, London is fancy. Yeah, not so much.
Really not.
Yeah, so it's interesting, he's in there, and then we get these scenes in the mirrors, where, and it's not the first time, so throughout the entire episode, we see reflections constantly, either in puddles, pools of water, mirrors, and we see in his flat/apartment, for our American listeners, earlier on, that he sees in the mirror and he sees Mark shaking his head at him. And we see all of these events go forward. So when he's in the bathroom, and he's completely freaking out, by the way, which is fair. He's being chased by a creature that, to his mind, is not real. He's freaking out, and he's literally seeing his own reflection move around. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, and again, this is me being weird. When he looks to his left, Mark's looking directly at him, but is not in line with him. So his actual reflection in the mirrors goes infinite to the left of him, because of the way the mirrors are in this place. You just see him continue to reflect. So Mark is separate to that. Mark is separate to the reflection and is moving around in the mirrors. Okay? When Stephen looks at Mark and actually makes eye contact with him, all of the other reflections vanish. Is that an editing error? Do you think that's deliberate? Am I overthinking it?
No, I think it was subtle but deliberate in the way that Mark is aware of Stephen. And this kind of almost flashes back, and again, probably going, way off. But if you imagine, or if you think back to the title of the show, The Goldfish Problem, Mark is looking at Stephen like he's in a goldfish bowl. He's aware of him. He's watching him. And when they lock eyes, it kind of brings them together.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah. No, that's really good. No, I do. Yeah, I do. And perhaps that's the first time that Stephen acknowledges Mark. So like you said, Mark's fully aware of Stephen, everything like that, and Stephen, he thinks he's sleepwalking, but in that moment, in that moment, he does actually realise that Mark is real. We get to see the kind of beginning of him allowing Mark to take over. And when that happens, you start to see Mark becoming Moon Knight, but you don't see the full thing. But what you see is the creature come bursting in, and you hear like this crazed fight going on. This sink gets ripped off the wall and gets thrown out. So again, your imagination is doing what it does right now. And to be honest with you, you're thinking, this creature is ripping Stephen apart. And then you see the creature try to escape.
Yeah.
And you realise that actually Moon Knight is beating 7 bells of crap out of this thing and literally beats it to death with his bare hands.
Which was really impressive, because
very impressive.
The creature itself, from what I can take from it, it's supposed to represent a jackal.
Yeah.
And a jackal obviously represents Anubis, which is god of the dead. So I think that, there's some significance. It wasn't just a random creature. No, you're definitely right. And just absolutely took him out. And then we have that end scene, that awesome end scene as he walks to the camera with the really white eyes, which I loved. And the suit looks amazing, by the way. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they've done an amazing job with that.
There'll be a lot of those at Comic-Con this year.
Oh, won't there? Yeah. Yeah, I should probably say this now, actually. We as a podcast have been invited to London Comic-Con this year, which I believe is taking place in May. If anyone who's a listener is planning to go, drop us a message, and we'll see if we can meet up and, I don't know, we can wander around. It'd be fun. But yeah, we have been invited. In what capacity so far, we don't know. But that could be good. I can almost sense you already asking for my press pass, by the way.
Can you feel it through the computer?
Yeah, I could feel like my phone's burning.
My population ticket isn't going to cut it this year.
Yeah, Gen Pop, no. Yeah. No, what's this standing in line thing? I don't know.
Who does that?
Yeah, who indeed. But yeah, so me and you will talk about that off of this. But yeah, for anyone who is planning to go to that, let us know. But yeah, so there are a couple of other small things well, one other small thing I want to bring up, and then anything else that you wanted to cover that I've missed. So the other little small thing I had, which again could be a complete throwaway line or could be something. There's this moment where Stephen arrives at work and there's a little girl basically putting rubbish in a like small pyramid. He spots her do it, talks to her to distract her, takes it away. Then when he goes to talk to her about the Egyptian sort of mummification ritual, she turns to him and says, "How did it feel not being allowed in?" And he goes, "What do you mean I'm not dead?" And then he says, "Am I?" What did you think about that scene? Because to me it seemed really odd.
I think that was, thinking about it now, may have been the red herring.
Yeah.
You know, maybe to throw us, to make, you know, something for us to talk about in you know, similar to other series where, you know, there's been this really hot topic of conversation that has meant nothing. I wonder if Girl is that.
Again,
I kind of, to me, that scene really got across his love of Egyptology and the museum and sharing knowledge, you know, and that's kind of what I took from it. However, when I watch it maybe for the third time and we've had this conversation, I might read more into it, you know.
I look again, I overanalyze some things and I looked at that and thought that was a strange thing for a little kid to say. But then at the same time, little kids can be just evil, little monsters, you know, just like, oh, I'm going to say this to someone just to mess with them. But the fact that he questioned it, you know, I'm not dead, am I? It was a genuine, you know, he genuinely didn't, it's weird. That was such a strange reaction.
Yeah, and I wonder if that actually is the beginning of him starting to explore the idea that something is up, whether that be I'm a ghost or you know I'm dead or whatever. But maybe that's the first kind of sign that we get of
questioning his reality.
Yeah, what is going on? Something's not quite right, and then it kind of goes beyond that and grows over the course of the episode.
I want to point out that his supervisor needs Mark to just throw her off the building. Maybe that's extreme. Maybe just kick her in the leg or something. I don't know. But I think I've worked with people like that my entire life. Really just did my head in because she says one thing to him as well, by the way, which did make me laugh. She says, "You're never going to be a tour guide." And he carries on, then he stops and goes, "Well, that was hurtful."
Yeah.
It's like, oh wow. Yeah. Poor guy.
But I wonder, again, you know, that their relationship, or so the relationships he has with some of the people in the museum.
Yeah.
The security guard, you know, the one that's always on his phone. You know, are their relationships going to be significant going forward? You know, are they going to be?
Well, the security guard calls him a different name, which I initially thought to myself, well, that's just because he doesn't know who he is, but maybe on a different day he is somebody else.
You know, maybe he's got some kind of watcher, protector. You know,
his supervisor calls him Stevie. Perhaps well, perhaps Mark doesn't. Perhaps Mark wants to be Stevie when he's there pretending. Did you see what I mean?
Yeah. And again, you know, even building up to, I've asked you out on a date. You know, the confusion there. Because I, in my mind, even Mark's version of Steve is more confident and a bit more charismatic, and you know, would be able to go up to a woman and go, "Hey, we're going for steak." Yeah. Even though he knows, you know, he's a vegan, so he's not going to say that. So yeah, I think that there's probably more to come out of the unit that's built in the museum potentially.
Yeah, no, I agree. Were there any other things that I've missed that you wanted to talk about or cover?
No, I don't think so. I think the only thing, just going back to you know, the comedic element of it, when he's talking about preparing for his date and he mentions the ankle restraints and that being that was brilliant. I thought that was really
that was great. Yeah, it's probably not a first date conversation, definitely.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, I think everything that, you know, we've talked about, I think we could go on for hours, and episode 2, I think we'll call back to episode 1, because things will come out and things will click, and things will become a lot more obvious.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Okay, so a massive thank you to you for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I will let you know what everybody has to say about you afterwards, because I know how much you're really looking forward to that. No, don't tell me anything. You've already said you're not going to listen to yourself, are you?
I'm
not
not.
going to listen to this.
This will be one episode that I don't listen to.
Oh, no, there's going to be essential listening figures down. But yeah, massive thank you for you stepping in. Stephan is back from his great adventure in the USA, so me and him will be continuing our discussions on all of the shows that's out there right now. Keep an eye on our Facebook page and across social media, because a lot of the shows that were delayed due to COVID are now all coming back. The Boys Season 3, Umbrella Academy Season 3. There's been a look at the new character, which is going to be heavily involved in that, so check that out. We also have from the Star Wars universe, the Obi-Wan series coming soon. There is lots everywhere. And of course, Marvel Monday, Moon Knight will be continuing for the next few weeks with the next episode next week as well. Thank you to you again, Kayleigh. A big thank you to everybody for listening. We'll be back soon.
Thank you for listening to the Stuff and Things podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. You can find us on Facebook or online. Simply search the Stuff and Things podcast to join in our conversation every week.